pleasure to be here. I'm going to start with a few slides around what Cenovus energy actually is. It's pronounced Cenovus, not Cenovus, but anyway. I'm going to talk to some of the challenges we had in existing infrastructure as far as how we did reports, or if we did reports at all. Talk about some of the benefits that we had to implementing an application that helped us with that. Talked about our implementation, how we did it, how we architected that, and then just kind of go through some of the sample reports and show some of the things that we were able to do within a short period of time, some complex, some actually very simple. So just going to go forward on that. This is a very important slide. I expect you guys all to read that really quick. That's a legal requirement, so I'll skip on that. A little bit about the oil sands. For those of you not familiar, but the oil sands are located in northern Alberta, and they're a mixture of sand, water, and clay, and heavy oil called bitumen. The resource is the biggest energy development in history, and presently there's two ways of being able to get the oil or recover the oil right now. One is drilling and one is mining. And just for some people's information, right now only 20% of the oil is close enough to the surface where it can be mined, leaving 80% of that oil available to be drilled, which is the more efficient and less impact on the environment. About Cenovus, we are a Canadian oil company. We're headquartered in Calgary, Alberta, and we have operations including oil sands, drilling projects in northern Alberta. These are some of the projects that we have on the go. Foster Creek and Christina Lake are our two major projects, and then we have some smaller projects that are in greenfield stages, as well as we have some established natural gas and oil production in Saskatchewan area in Alberta, and we're also 50-50 owners of two refineries that are in the United States with Phillips 66. A little bit about what we do and what we're all about. We are committed to applying fresh, progressive thinking to the development of energy resources in the world. So we do have a proven track record for low-cost operations and environmental leadership. We do place a very heavy emphasis on environmental footprint and things like that. We do have a very big respect for communities that we work in, and we're involved in many of them and most of the communities that we do have sites around, and we're about 5,000 staff. A little bit about our plans for growth, and this comes into play specifically around oil sands. And if you take a look at 2010 numbers, roughly half of our production numbers were based on conventional oil and gas. And you can see that the trend is slowly changing, and our plans for growth are relatively aggressive, but they're all basically based on oil sands. And there's a very large reserve, and we have a large amount of reservoir available to support this growth going forward. So looking at it, production numbers up around 600,000 barrels going forward in the next 5 to 10 years. For those of you who are not familiar with SAGD and what SAGD is, probably show of hands who've heard the term SAGD. Oh, that's pretty good, actually. For those of you not familiar with it, it's a thermal recovery technology, which basically we use heat to assist the recovery of oil. So going through the process relatively quick. We generate steam. We inject the steam underground. It's used to soften the oil to get it to a factor that it allows us to flow. We bring the oil and the water to the surface. We separate the two, and then we transport it to be refined. It's a relatively simple process, and it is a somewhat environmentally safe process as well. There is other technologies that are used to bring the oil to the ground other than injecting steam, such as injecting solvents as well as CO2 to help reduce the amount of water that's used in the process. There's a kind of a cross-section of how that looks. So these wells are drilled roughly to 400 to 450 meters below the surface. So they're relatively large wells. An example of a well pad at one of our facilities. We show the footprint of the well pad. So that's the kind of what we do. I guess I was asked to talk about the EMI aspects of things, and primarily I'm going to talk about how we used EMI for increasing our reporting efficiencies. And some of the problems we had or objectives around why we needed a project or application to support that was understand any showstoppers we had using products that may be available. We needed to identify key business stakeholders that would benefit from using technology such as that. We also had to give the stakeholders a overview of the application and its capabilities. So some of the stakeholders that were very key to us were VPs of operations, managers of operations, our superintendents at our facilities, area coordinators, and the CEO, as well as production engineering, operations engineering, reservoir engineering, electrical engineering, and environmental. So we had a very vast, diverse group of stakeholders that would be impacted from an application or reporting infrastructure, and we had to make sure that we could get buy-in from all those. So we did have to solicit input to develop our plant and field models to identify areas that we could use to template reports. Some of the applications that are available allow you to do templating and makes templating of reusable and over reports much more efficient. So as an example, I could template a report for a well pad or a well, and in our scenario, we have 220 wells. I don't have to create that report 220 times. I create it once, and I just keep reusing it. So that's where the modeling aspect of things helps us. And the last most important thing would be to turn data into actionable information. Everybody had spreadsheets all over the place, and nobody really knew what the source of truth really was. So this is one way for us to be able to consolidate those. Some of the other challenges. Our existing reports were delivered by our IT organization, so it was very slow and very painful to get a report created for us. It's an internal IT deliverable, so familiar with IT organizations, sometimes they don't go at the pace that we would want them to go. And it required a deployment to make reporting changes. So literally I had to wait, through a schedule. It may be this week, it could be next week, and it just made things really difficult to be able to get data to people. We also had to be able to support changing business requirements. So when you have an operation running, today they might want something, but tomorrow they may be wanting something different. So we had to be able to support that. And if we go back to the top slide, or the top bullet, if IT was delivering that, they'd be stuck on the one requirement, not realizing that it's changed the next day. So we weren't able to support that. New report requests are coming daily, and we couldn't deliver based on that solution. We wanted to get away from programming reports. So we wanted to be able to configure reports and not program them. So that was another big key. I didn't want to have an IT programmer involved. I can literally have a process control engineer supporting this application and being able to deliver reports in a timely fashion. We had many existing Excel reports that were redundant. So if I had a production engineering group, I maybe had 4 or 5 production engineers that had their own reports. And they all looked somewhat similar, but they're all somewhat different. And at the end of the day, they're really looking for the same information. So we had Excel hell, and we need to get away from Excel hell. So there's so many candidates to create reports, and there's still many, many candidates out there. We also had a ton of different data sources. We had data sources from historians to business systems, incident management systems, manual data entry, production allocation, production volume reporting, alarm management, and a number of other ones that we identify as the projects and as the system gets more and more used. So this is just going to get more and more prevalent inside the organization. So what this allowed us to do is aggregate and bring the data back into an existing or a single view that made us provide information to stakeholders relatively easily. So why did we choose this application? Well, it gave us agile configuration-driven report creation. A lot of these reports are done just in Excel and published into the portal. We wanted something that was business-owned, and by that I mean I don't want something that I have to go to my IT organization to get changes made. So this is something that's actually delivered by the business for the asset and not by a corporate organization. I wanted to have the ability to report data from multiple different data sources. So as I mentioned, those data sources are quite many, and that number is increasing. I wanted to be able to model my facility in a way that can make reporting and ad hoc reporting relatively easy. It allows me to do benchmarking across assets, and I can also have consistency across my assets. I also needed to be able to support multi-asset integration. With that, we have multiple facilities that will all tie into the same application infrastructure and allow us to provide reports across all the different assets. Having a mature, scalable, turnkey, vendor-supported application was something else that was very important. We had a trend where a lot of our applications were custom-built applications, and they're just way too difficult to support. So having a vendor-supported application made a lot of sense. And while you don't get everything you need in an application like that, you may get 80%, but you can live with 80% knowing that you got the support and long-term support of that product going forward. Ability to generate notifications based on certain conditions was something else that was of importance to us. So we can literally send out notices on process conditions, alarm conditions, or even just based on certain values in a report. The other key thing for us was that we weren't just looking for something that could provide operational or production-based reporting. So we can report on everything from alarm management to environmental-based reports. That was something else that made this application really nice for us. So more of the why. Rapid configuration. I can literally give a report to anybody in my group, and they can do it in VantagePoint. I don't need a custom IT developer. Well, I just need somebody to configure this application and configure the report. It also gave us a combination of time and risk savings. I can walk down the hall to somebody in my group and change priorities on a report they're doing just by going to them and talking to them. I don't have to go through a lengthy process to get something changed. I can support different complexities in the report. And by that, we have some that require manual data entry and audit trail and user validation. That could take typically a couple months to deliver. We also have some that are just quick comparisons of data in a contextualized format that can be delivered in hours. So it's a very broad support of different types of reports. Some of those are monthly, some of those are weekly, some of those are daily. Here's just an example of some of the way the architecture is created. So we do have a base server in our corporate location, and here's some of the different data sources that tie into that server. So right now we have a single server architecture that supports the entire asset groups. So that's 2 assets right now, and that's going to expand to up to 4 going forward in the future. On the front end, we had the Excel-based reports with clients available in Calgary at any of our sites, as well as support for mobile clients. So the architecture was very flexible and allowed us to do anything that we needed. Here's a couple examples of some of the sample reports, and this is an example of a production report. Don't worry about the numbers, they're kind of made up. But just showing you the different types of things that we were able to do and provide for people that needed information. So this is all information based on mostly historical data, but a lot of it's KPI data as well. So we do have a KPI calculation system that we use internally, and this is able to pull data from multiple different data sources. So manual data entry data sources, KPI data sources, as well as historical data sources. We also created a high-level management report. And just to show, so the previous slide showed a report that's used in a production meeting every morning. This is a report that goes to higher level management once a month. And it's of high visibility. It's a monthly snapshot of the performance up at site. And it was a complex report that was a 60-slide PowerPoint presentation that had contributions from many people. So we had, I think, 12 to 15 people generating content and putting into Excel spreadsheets and creating graphs and pouring those into and handing them to somebody who put them all into a PowerPoint presentation. That was done every month. So now in VantagePoint, we're able to use a template, and the only thing that changes is the data that gets entered. And the charts and the graphs are dynamically created based on the data. And we have areas of production, engineering, human resources, safety, reservoir engineering, and more. So pretty much any department or group at site that reported into this application has a slide or multiple slides in this report. So this was saving a single person about 6 to 8 hours every month just by creating this report. It also enabled us to track things that we probably didn't even normally think about. We hadn't really put a lot of large emphasis on our capacity. So things like MCC capacity. We have a lot of MCCs at our facility, but we really had no idea what the status of those MCCs were. So Here's an example of a capacity report that shows the capacity of MCCs within the facility and where they are as far as capacity. We would have never known that before, and this application has provided a lot of different insights into different things that we maybe not normally even thought about. As far as the template reporting, some of you may be familiar with what MARP is, or Measurement, Accounting, and Reporting Plans. This allowed us to create template reports, so I can basically create a meter type inside the application and report a whole bunch of different things on the meter. So I create a single meter, and now I have reports for every single meter in our facility. And I think our MARP plan right now has between 600 and 700 meters that we'll be able to report with a single report here. Alarm management is also a big concern at our facility, as is probably a lot of facilities. This allowed us to pull data, alarm management data, out of our alarm database and publish it in a way that made it simple for our operations people to be able to look at our area mismatches. So I can get this report out. It gets generated every day or every 6 hours, depending on what the specific area wants, and they can go and validate where they are with respect to what the alarm master database is saying it should be. So I guess to conclude, are we smarter? I guess it's tough to tell, really. Nobody would really know that. But with this, we do have the ability to provide data to so many more people in the organization quicker and faster and a lot more effectively. It allowed us to now provide a single point of truth for data throughout the organization. It meets the needs of most everything that we require right now as far as reporting. We like that it's off the shelf, and we like that we can leverage a whole bunch of different data sources. And the kind of final thing for us was, if you can use Excel, you can use this application. And I know a lot of people know how to use Excel. So, and lastly, I love fossil fuels. Thank you.